Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen who were so sorry that they had no children. So sorry that it cannot be expressed. They went to all the waters in the world, vows, pilgrimages. All ways were tried, and all to no purpose. At last, however, the queen had a daughter. There was a very fine christening, and the princess had for her godmothers all the fairies they could find in the country. They found 7, that every one of them might give her a gift, as was the custom of the fairies in those days, by which means the princess might have all imaginable perfections. After the ceremonies of the christening were over, all the company returned to the king's palace, where there was prepared a great feast for the fairies. There was placed before every one of them a magnificent cover, with a case of massive gold, wherein there was a spoon, fork, and knife of fine gold set with diamonds and rubies. But as they were all sitting down at table, they saw come into the hall a very old fairy, whom they had not invited, because it was above 50 years since she had been out of a tower, and she was believed to be either dead or enchanted. The king ordered her a cover, but could not give her a case of gold as the others had, because they had only 7 made for the 7 fairies. The old fairy fancied she was slighted and muttered some threats between her teeth. One of the young fairies, who sat by her, heard her mutterings, and, judging that she might give the little princess some unlucky gift, went, as soon as they rose from table, and hid herself behind the hangings, that she might speak last, and repair as much as she could the evil which the old fairy might do. In the meantime, all the fairies began to give their gifts to the princess. The youngest but one gave her for her gift that she should be the most beautiful person in the world. The next, that she should have the wit of an angel. The third, that she should have a wonderful grace in everything she did. The fourth, that she should dance perfectly well. The fifth, that she should sing like a nightingale. And the sixth, that she should play all kinds of music to the utmost perfection. The old fairy's turn being come, instead of giving the princess a gift, she said with a shaking head that the princess should pierce her hand with a spindle and die of the wound. This terrible gift made all the company tremble, and everybody fell a-crying. At this very instant, the young fairy came out from behind the hangings and spoke these words aloud. "Assure yourselves, O king and queen, that your daughter shall not die of this disaster. It is true, I have not power to undo entirely what my elder has done. The princess shall indeed pierce her hand, but instead of dying, she shall fall into a deep sleep that shall last 100 years, at the expiration of which a king's son shall come and awake her." The king caused a proclamation to be made, whereby everybody was forbidden, upon pain of death, to spin with a distaff and spindle. About 15 or 16 years after, it happened that the young princess, running up and down the palace, came into a little room on the top of a tower, where an old woman was alone spinning with her distaff. This good woman had not heard of the proclamation. "What are you doing there, good woman?" said the princess. "I am spinning, my pretty child," said the old woman. "Ha, this is very pretty. How do you do it? Give it me, that I may see if I can do so." She had no sooner taken the spindle than she pricked her hand with it and fell down in a swoon. The good old woman, much frightened, cried out for help. People came in from every side, but nothing would bring her to herself. The king caused the princess to be carried into the finest apartment and laid upon a bed all embroidered with gold and silver. One would have taken her for an angel. Her cheeks were carnation and her lips like coral. She was heard to breathe softly. The king commanded that she should not be disturbed, but should sleep quietly till her hour of awakening was come. The good fairy was informed of it by a little dwarf who had boots of 7 leagues, with which he could tread over 7 leagues at a step. The fairy set out immediately and arrived about an hour after in a chariot of fire, drawn by dragons. She thought that when the princess awoke, she might be much at a loss to know what to do, being alone in that old palace. She touched with her wand all that was in the palace: maids of honor, gentlemen, officers, cooks, scullions, and guards. She also touched all the horses in the stables, the great mastiffs in the courtyard, and little Poof, the princess's little dog, which lay by her on the bed. All fell asleep immediately, to awaken at the same time as their mistress, that they might be ready to wait upon her when she should want them. The spits that were before the fire, with partridges and pheasants upon them, fell asleep, and the fire likewise. All this was done in a moment. Fairies are very quick in their work. And now the king and queen, having kissed their dear child without waking her, went out of the palace and published orders that nobody should come near it. These orders were not necessary, for in a quarter of an hour's time there grew up all around the park such a quantity of trees, great and small, bushes and brambles, twining one within another, that neither man nor beast could pass through. At the end of 100 years, the son of a king, who then reigned, went a-hunting on that side of the country, and asked what those towers were which he saw above a great thick wood. Every one answered according to his knowledge. Some said it was an old castle haunted by spirits. Others, that all the witches held their Sabbath there. At last, an old peasant said to him, "Prince, more than 50 years ago, I heard my father say that there was in that castle the most beautiful princess, that she must sleep there 100 years and should be waked by a king's son, for whom she was reserved." The young prince, at this speech, felt himself all on fire, believing that he should put an end to so fine an adventure. Scarce had he advanced toward the wood, when all the great trees, the bushes, and the brambles gave way to let him pass through. He walked up to the castle, which he saw at the end of a large avenue, where he went in, and found himself in a great court, where everything he saw was enough to freeze him with fear. There was a dreadful silence. He went into several rooms full of gentlemen and ladies, all asleep, some standing, others sitting. He passed into a chamber all gilt with gold, where he saw upon a bed the finest sight that ever was beheld a princess. She appeared to be about 15 or 16 years old, and whose brightness had something divine in it. He approached with trembling and admiration, and fell down before her upon his knees. Then, as the enchantment was at an end, the princess awoke, and, looking on him, "Is it you, my prince?" said she. "You have waited a long time." The prince, charmed with these words, and much more with the manner in which they were spoken, knew not how to show his joy. In short, they were married, and the prince conducted her to his palace, and they lived happily ever after.